Okay, what happens when you take the idea of the old school Castlevania games, the rather modern and low budget pixel art, and hentai? You almost get SOPHYIA and the Ancient Clan. But that doesn't mean that's a good thing, because here, for the most part, it simply isn't. Now, at first glance, it may seem like this game has nothing to do with hentai, and while technically true, because otherwise it wouldn't be on the Switch at all, it still has clear hints of it. And I will get to that now. First, one thing that immediately pissed me off is the fact that the cover of this game is censored, despite it being digital only on the Switch. But then again, since this was also released on the PS4 and PS5, also digitally, and I guess the PS4 version was taken as the base version, then okay, it really doesn't surprise me. Because the cover was supposed to look like this. Yet, we got this. But it gets even worse because the censorship is hard on this one. Originally, this game was released on Steam, but under the title Sexcraft, SOPHYIA and the Lewd Clan. And in that version, SOPHYIA would kill her enemies, but she would have sex with them before getting her potions. Just imagine something like Wife Quest and how the main character stomps on her enemies. Sexcraft is very similar to that. Now, I am not saying that this game necessarily needs sex scenes in it to work, but if the original has it, taking them out simply is censorship, and therefore a release on consoles is beyond pointless, but not only because it doesn't have sex scenes, but rather because of the rest that I will mention. So, since the console version has none of it, that explains why the enemies simply disappear instead of waving their give up white flag, I don't know. And it also explains these scenes. Now, scenes like these are supposed to help explain the story, but in the end it doesn't help anything. Not only because they don't tell you that much in the first place, but because they are disposable, since the text underneath isn't interesting. In the beginning you will not even notice what's actually wrong with these scenes, but later on you will. Just look at this one. SOPHYIA is moaning here, but it makes absolutely no sense why she is doing it. Or this scene, where she clearly is taking a pipe from behind, but we only see her face, which makes clear that this was supposed to be a hentai game, and these scenes were supposed to show some sauce. And yes, in Sexcraft they do. That's why they are zoomed in on consoles and look like pixelated shit. In itself, it wouldn't have been as bad if they simply switch these scenes out and replace them with new ones that actually make sense in the story, but no. Seemingly they just kept the originals but cut the sauce parts out by simply zooming in. This is the definition of lazy. So on the censorship alone, this game isn't worth anything. So just don't pay for it. If you want to support the developers, play the Steam Sexcraft version instead, if you can still get it. If not, there are other sites that have it. But even taking all of that out of it, and just looking at this as a pure game in Castlevania style, then SOPHYIA still doesn't work. Now, I have absolutely no problem with the visuals. They are actually nicely done and has that old school 16-bit thing going for it. The colors are quite nice, the levels towards the end have a slight Castlevania feel to them, and the characters also look decent, especially SOPHYIA and her jiggly titties. Well, okay, she looks really weird in these scenes for some reason, but outside of that, in the game itself, she looks quite good. But that's where my praise for this game ends, because almost everything goes downhill from there. It's not like this is a beyond terrible game, certainly not, even without considering the censorship. However, outside of the good visuals, everything else it does is beyond mediocre at best. Let's start with the gameplay first. You can jump, double jump and use your magic to defeat the enemies. Depending on how hard or how quick you press the jump button, that's how high you will jump. SOPHYIA herself is quite responsive, and she also has special shots in her disposal. But those special shots are mostly useless until the bosses happen, because the normal enemies are easily defeated by normal shots, or most of them can simply be avoided. So there isn't a real reason to fight, and yes, the game is rather quite easy and even the bosses won't give you much challenge. Okay, let me correct that. There isn't a real reason to fight in the consoles, but on PC, there is a reason to fight, because SOPHYIA will get the pipe afterwards. But not even all enemies will even have attack animations. Heck, not even all will actually attack you until your sprite hits their sprite. Even the ones that actually attack you don't really have attack animations. The enemies will shoot projectiles and whatever, but because they don't move their arms or anything to attack, I assume that the projectiles come out of their ass. The bosses have animations, but again, there are only just 3 bosses total and they aren't that challenging as long as you use your special shots. But at least they are somewhat of a high point of this game, because all the other enemies leave a lot to be desired. The only reason to even defeat the regular enemies is either to get potions that restore your health and mana, or to get special shots. Or to see sex in the PC version. While the potions disappear after a few seconds, the shots stay as long as you don't collect them. Really annoying is the recharge of her normal attacks. SOPHYIA will need mana to attack normally, and while that's fine, the only indication that you need a recharge phase is this blue bar, so you always have to keep an eye on it. In the beginning I was fine with it, because I thought I could upgrade my shots or shorten the reload times and whatever later on, but no, absolutely nothing is upgradable, which makes the mana recharge rather annoying. But not only that, you cannot shoot your magic as fast as possible, you can only do it one at a time. Meaning you always have to wait until your first magic shot disappears before you can shoot again. But even worse, that shot only goes up to the middle of the screen and then disappears. I mean, why? Sure, if every shot went from one side of the screen to another, considering that you have to wait until your previous shot disappears, you would have to wait a long time, but that wait time shouldn't even be there. Why not go with a rapid shot instead? Yeah, as long as you recharge, you can actually use your special shots, if you have magic for it, that is, but it seems like a really lazily implemented method to not change the way normal shots work. Just like it was very lazy to not replace the zoomed pictures out. One thing that I do like, however, is that the enemies do not respawn at all once you have defeated them. Well, as long as you stay on the same sub-level. There are only 3 levels in the game, but those are split into 10 or more sub-levels, and some can be quite long. So no, it's a very short game with no unlockables at all, outside of those wannabe cutscenes. In fact, I've beat the whole thing in around 4.5 hours in a single sitting. What will kill you quite a few times aren't the enemies because, as I've stated, they barely attack you or are any challenge. What will kill you are the pits, which are instant death. Personally, however, I don't think that's a problem because it forces you to pay attention to where you are jumping and how high. And since SOPHYIA controls quite fine, it's all good. However, there are some leap of faith jumps that don't help the cause of the game. Sometimes you have to jump into something invisible and that can be quite annoying. Now sure, just like in early Sonic games, you can tilt the camera up and down to see what's above and below, but in the end, it gets rather annoying having to do that at almost every jump in later levels. So overall, the game feels average at best. The music isn't anything special either, and for the most part, rather unfitting somehow. Especially one level forced me to mute my damn TV because I got really annoyed at the music and how at parts the volume suddenly went so high that it hurt my ears. Just listen to this. See how annoying this shit can get? And this was all on the same volume, I didn't change anything here. So to end this, is SOPHYIA worth it? I would say absolutely not, even without considering the heavy and lazy censorship. It doesn't have any unlocks and overall it not only feels very average at best, maybe even below average, but it also has some really annoying elements in it. Well, okay, maybe the visuals and the boob movement of SOPHYIA herself are nice, but that's about it. But by the way, why is she always blinking? Well, whatever. If you want to play a much better version of this game, just play Sexcraft on PC. If you want a game with fan service, then Wife Quest absolutely destroys SOPHYIA in every single way. Well, almost, since Wife Quest doesn't show as much cleavage, but still, it's by far the better game.